performance perspective. We've had a performance-based code for the last 20 years, but there's still a lack of understanding throughout the industry of how a performance-based code is used. Productivity in Australia has been failing, and we all have a part to play, lifting productivity. Why would we want to increase the use of performance? The current reforms deliver a 1.1 billion productivity gain, and the proposed reforms are believed to deliver another $1.1 billion. Performance delivers 70% of that productivity gains. So the ABCB is prioritising the use of performance as an important part of their reforms. Can I just ask a question, if you can put up your hands, how many people have actually used a performance-based solution? Okay, not many. In order to increase the use of performance, there are three key areas to consider: engendering a performance mindset, capacity building, and quantification. The majority of performance requirements are qualitative. Determining the actual requirements is a challenge, so they are addressing the quantification to rectify that it's important to understand that there are choices when considering to meet the performance requirements, as there have always been choices. You can either do it D to satisfy, or you can do it as an alternative solution. So firstly, engendering a performance mindset. It's clear from surveys run by the ABCB and feedback received that there is a prescriptive mindset within the industry. The ABCB is of the view that there needs to be a cultural change to understand that the only mandatory requirements are the performance requirements. So they've published the performance requirements extracted from the NCC as a separate booklet. They did this to highlight that these are only the mandatory requirements of the NCC. They found that building owners and designers don't understand this and follow the GTS to the letter. But that's not the case. If you have any feedback on this, the ABCB would like to hear from you, so email them to that email address on the slide. For clarity of this message, the ABCB has produced a simple YouTube clip to educate that the performance requirements are the only mandatory requirements. And you can refer to their website, and we'll be able to play that clip later on during the break. In capacity building, we are looking at demystifying performance-based design solutions. So the ABCB has created a guidance document to assist in building the capacity for practitioners to use performance, which we'll look at this a bit later. This guidance document has the support and has been endorsed by the AIBS, ARIA, the HIA, RICS, the UDIA and the MBA. The ABCB is also developing more YouTube clips and developing specific case studies to be able to assist building practitioners. The final component of increased use of performance is quantification, and this is the key to the whole thing. The NCC has qualitative performance requirements. So to increase the use of performance, the ABCB needs to quantify them as much as they can. For 2015, the ABCB has introduced verification methods for structural reliability and weatherproofing, and we'll cover those later during the NCC changes. For 2016, they'll be working on others, including energy efficiency, ventilation, bushfires, emergency lighting, heated water, and pipework noise. So let's look at the application of performance. To get an understanding of how to apply the application of performance, we're going to look at an example of ceiling heights in a Class 1 building and how you might go around formulating a performance alternative solution using the ABCB's new guidance document in the development of performance solutions. The guidance document is presented as 4 distinct steps. Prepare a performance design brief, carry out analysis, modelling or testing, collate and evaluate results, and prepare a final report. So let's explore developing a performance solution using this guidance document for a room height in a Class 1. Note that the document is intended for guidance and its suggested pathway in developing a performance solution. It's also important to note that this is a hypothetical, actually not quite because it has been used before, and may not be an exact representation of what a building surveyor may require under specific cases. Preparing a performance design brief. Developing a brief requires the project stakeholders to collaborate on an agreed pathway for the design process to follow. For a room height performance solution, you might require the building design practitioner, the client, the builder and the RBS to be present to discuss the development of the brief. In order to avoid potential conflicts of interest, the RBS should limit their involvement in the overall design process to the development of the performance-based brief only. Things that stakeholders might need to decide on are the building component or area that the performance solution is being applied to, what exactly is being proposed as in the design problem, identifying the relevant performance requirements or requirements of the NCC using clause 1.0.10, as well as other project-specific requirements that are applicable. Determining the appropriate path of compliance that will be used. This includes choosing the assessment method listed in the NCC and what format the final report will be in and what it will include. Agreements need to be met at this point as to how compliance will be met, with the RBS happy that the relevant performance requirements have been identified. For the sake of this example, the stakeholders have agreed that using an expert judgment would be the most appropriate way of demonstrating compliance with the NCC performance requirements. In this case, an expert judgment might come from an architect, a building designer, an interior designer, or a combination of expert opinions from practitioners with relevant design in the relevant design profession. The design professional then needs to go away and prepare a document that demonstrates that the relevant performance requirements are met. So the purpose of this example, the performance requirement is P2.4.2. A habitable room or space must have sufficient height that does not unduly interfere with its intended function. The design professional might consider factors such as the function of the space, such as the bedroom intended for the purpose of sleeping and storage of items, the intended room layout, the bed is intended to be located under a reduced ceiling height area, or a semi-permanent bit of furniture is going to be in that area, the intended human movement and paths of egress, the area where the ceiling is reduced won't affect or unduly affect people moving around the room, and areas for potential loss of amenity. General activities undertaken in that room will not result in industry or inability to perform day-to-day human tasks. The next step is to collate and evaluate the results. This involves checking the assessment method, in this case the expert judgment, to ensure it covers the intended compliance that were identified in the development of the brief. It's an opportunity for the stakeholders involved to review the proposed solution and whether any further work is required. Note the RBS can't be involved in this process, and the builder, owner, designer could engage an independent building surveyor to check the assessment methods. The final step is to develop a final report showing compliance. In this case, this might be pulling together of the expert judgment report along with supporting relevant documentation. The final report should include an overview of the performance-based design brief, an overview and outline of the assessment undertaken, including the process used to determine clause 1.010, identification of all the performance requirements, and the listing of the assessment method used in clause 1.0.9, evaluation of the assessment, and a final conclusion. As the final report is being developed using an agreed pathway of demonstrating compliance, the stakeholder group should have confidence that the report meets the relevant NCC performance requirements. The RBS should then be able to make a determination based on the documentation submitted as to whether to accept it or to refuse the performance-based design. But if the RBS has been involved in the first place as far as the design brief, one would hope that he would accept the design. So remember, this is a guidance document to assist practitioners developing performance solutions and different pathways to compliance that may vary. A copy of that guide to the development of performance-based designs can be downloaded from the ABCB's website. They also have a YouTube video, which I'll play later. You can also refer to our practice note 2014-63, Alternative Solutions, Procedures and Documentation. It's also important to note, particularly for the RBS, that you should fully document any decision that you make in relation to the alternative solution.